Hey everyone, welcome back to Cignals Trading Academy. This is lesson number 7, and today we're going to talk about absorption. And we've gone over quite a bit at this point, from the basics to volume profile to order flow analysis. And now I want to touch on price action a little bit before we round out this first year, if you will, of the Cignals Trading Academy. We're going to break this down into a typical type of university format where you have your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior years. We're getting quite close to the end of our freshman year here, where we've gone over the absolute basics. Each year is going to have about maybe anywhere from 8 to 12 videos in it. So there's going to be quite a bit of videos coming out over the next few weeks and months as we go into our sophomore year, over the next couple of videos as we round out our freshman year. And we really haven't touched yet. We've gone over the absolute basics, literally the absolute basics up into, the basics of volume profile, order flow analysis, but we really haven't touched heavily yet on price action. So the next few videos to round out this freshman year will be about price action. And I've said this before, anything moves are started and stopped in markets by liquidity, right? Liquidity starts every move and it stops every move. So what we want to do now is look for something called absorption. And absorption is simply some area of a chart or a footprint which shows you buyers or sellers are starting to take control of the initiative, or the initiative might be shifting away from its current trend, if you will. So, what does that all mean? Well, we have a 4-hour cluster of Bitcoin USDT on Binance Futures up right here. And what we can see here, there's a few examples of absorption, with one being right about here. This is pretty self-explanatory here. If you notice, right, let's pull out a little bit of a drawing tool here and go over this. If you notice, right, you saw it here too. There was an area where buyers were taking control of the initiative. They didn't, like you saw here, we had a big drawdown here, decent amount of drawdown on Delta that obviously was negative. Price was coming down, continued to come down, continued to come down. But what happened here? And then again here, and now again here. What we're starting to see is something called absorption, meaning that the market wants to come down. It's trying to come down. Because if you go back, let's close this up. If you go back to here, market, kind of in the process of locally topping in the 47.5 area, okay? Couldn't really get above it, and then eventually we start to break down, right? And what happens is, as we break down, we find the bottom, we create this end pocket at 44 and change, okay? And we start to reverse back up. There's really no absorption here quite yet. It's just a move happens, we get a little bit of a reversal, pop higher, and then we start to go range bound. We get back up into try to test the local highs, can't really do it, start to fall again, and what we start to see is this absorption. And what does that mean? So right here, market tried to reverse. We fall about, $3,000 or so, off this high over here. And we find the bottom here, NPOC, buy imbalance. We have VWAP starting to turn up. And then we start to get that reversal, right? Which starts to play out. And then what we start to see is that, again, right here, we start to get sellers come back into the market. They don't want to continue, because again, liquidity starts and stops all moves. So obviously here we had people, or traders that weren't ready to lift past our current high, our current local, right? Because what happened was we tried to get above 48. If you follow us on Twitter or in Discord, links below, you know that we were saying for quite some time, getting above 47 is very important, but ultimately holding above 47 and continuing to press the initiative on high volume, and again, volume and price action, more videos on breakouts and price action will follow this one before we round out the freshman year. But getting back to the point, we wanted to see volume come in at these levels, which we did once we got this move higher above 47 the first time. But what's concerning to me was that we couldn't hold it. And every time we tried to press, well, not that we couldn't hold 47 because we did for a bit, but what happens was we tried to press higher into the 48K region. We got a little bit above, but we saw, and you can see it right here as well. Sellers continue to step back in this area. They're capping the range for the most part. We haven't really been able to take them out quite aggressively yet, albeit that we have all of the telltale signs on the tape that buyers do want to push the initiative and take it back and push higher again. You see the buying balance come in at the base of these candles, meaning that buyers are aggressively pushing higher or trying to catch sellers flat-footed, which they do in the interim. Ultimately, though, buyers couldn't do it. They couldn't extend and lift higher. Sellers stepped in. You notice if you take a look here, you got sell imbalance coming in essentially at the top of the range. Not something you really want to see. Buyers tried to lift it. They really did. Valiant effort for sure. Tried to lift it, but could not do it. You get the crossover over here, VWAP wise. We start to drift. Again, buyers step back in. We try to lift. We try to lift. We try to lift, but we can't. Okay. So what happens is absorption works on both sides of the trade. Because again, liquidity starts and stops when it moves, guys. So what you see here is on the top side, we have that 48K region, right, where it's providing a ton of resistance. It's a low volume area, basically, because it can't get above, price can't extend above. So it's going to provide that resistance until it ultimately breaks. So that's what we're looking at here on this side of it, is that buyers are their buy pressure trying to lift that ask is being absorbed by active sellers coming in and hitting the book at these levels, right? You start to see many orders come in here all the way down to here. And it's when you see stuff like that, if you're long here, if you're just getting in, let's say you're trying to play this little breakout right here, and you start to see that we can't really rotate. You got in, let's call it at the top of this candle. You're looking for a breakout at like 47, let's call it 47.2, and you're trying to play that rotation. Let's say you got to 48.2, you got that $1,000 roughly, but you're noticing that you cannot extend further. If you didn't exit here at this point, and you start to notice, okay, you get this dip back down into the range for the most part. Can't really continue higher. We're not getting back to 48.2, and you didn't take profit. You're still holding. This is your first sign that we're starting to go range bound, consolidate. There's a lot of absorption happening, and we're at risk of a reversal because ultimately these low volume areas now are going to cap us and are going to provide resistance until something changes the initiative and liquidity comes back into the market with force, and we break the top of this range and continue higher. But for now, it's very evident that we do not have the momentum to do so. There is absorption coming into the market in this general area, right? Because you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, at least 36 hours of sellers stepping in to absorb any of the buy pressure that bulls are exerting onto the market on Binance futures or in this time frame. So with that being said, we look back and ultimately what happens? We can't break it, right? Even though buyers, if you notice the tape, buyers are trying. They really are, but they cannot move it higher. We are locally topped for the most part. So what does that mean? Something's got to change the initiative. Liquidity's got to come back into the market and ultimately move it higher, but we are not getting that currently. And what happens? We get this drawdown, quite considerable drawdown. But ultimately, buyers step back in. You see that the reversal is taking place because we have an NPOC here. If you haven't watched the other videos, we've gone over NPOC quite a bit. Sign of a reversal without getting into crazy detail. And then again, another telltale sign, window mode on Cignals is kind of like a quasi heat map. We see imbalance come in, steep slope change in VWAP. We do get a push higher quite considerably. We get within earshot of this local high from where we broke down. Couldn't take it out. Then we consolidate in this range a little bit, for a tiny bit. And you see, not really a crazy amount of absorption here just yet because we do break down a little bit further from there. But if you look here for 4, 8, 12, 16 hours, notice this range right here. 16 hours, we're trading in this little band right here, right? Okay. You got buy and balance. We try to push higher. Really can't. You see how compressed these candles? Because again, the clusters are showing you the tails. The body, the actual candle itself. You see the compression. The wicks are quite crazy here. We do get a little bit of a slope reversal and a breakout. Okay, we take out this previous high, but we couldn't take out where we broke down from just yet. All right, so couldn't push the initiative higher. Quite a crazy wick here. Ultimately, it is on negative delta as well, which is kind of a tell, and we start to break down from there. So we do get some absorption. We do get that pop. We do take out this local high, but can't take out from where we failed from. So that's not a great sign. So this is putting it all together at this point, price action and order flow wise. Looking for the absorption. You see we're getting buyers come in. You want to see the buy and balance happen in an area of the candle that's not topped out. It's coming in at portions of the cluster where you'd want to see it. We do get that slope change, but again, these wicks are disgusting, and we can't take out the previous high from where we broke down from. Albeit we did have some absorption for about 16 hours, a little bit more than a half a day's worth of absorption, which did give us this pop. And now here we are in real time. Let's look at it. This is a great example because look, if you look here, this is 4, 8, 12, right? So 4, 8, 12, 16 rather, excuse me. I'm like just getting over being sick, so like my brain is all fuzzy here. Can't do basic math. But what we're looking at is, 16 hours again now of absorption on both sides of the trade. We're range bound. We're consolidating. So we're fighting for initiative. We're getting some telltale signs of sellers coming in, trying to push the initiative. We do have this little bit of an extension up here, low volume area that's capping us. And then again, on the bottom, we have a little bit of a low volume area where you'd expect to see buyers. And then we have the distribution. If it was me, I think we're going to balance out and trade here for a bit. But you see the absorption on both sides as prices starting to, get into that tight, coiled congestion range and ultimately try to volley for position. So here, what you see, again, if it was me just looking at this and trying to make a educated guess on where we're going to go next, it looks like we're trying to achieve some kind of balance. Sellers are pushing the initiative or trying to push the initiative and break the floor where we would see, the absorption, or we have seen absorption kind of on the buy side come in whenever sellers are retesting these levels. If we can break below here and then retest, let's say somewhere in this area, a little bit lower would be where I'd look to next. But you're seeing here how absorption works on both sides of the tape. Okay, it'd be great to see divergence print here where this delta cluster becomes green as this bar, if you will, is red, and then the next one, let's say, dips down to like somewhere here or here, right, the base of this range where we're absorbing all of this sell pressure. If we can get a divergence print here before the next cluster forms and we start to rotate back higher and ultimately crack this, we start to try to target these highs again here, and ultimately need to take this out. So it's really self-explanatory. It's not rocket science. It's not crazy. It's not something that you need to really, make yourself crazy over, because at the end of the day, all you need to look for are these telltale signs. And I'm using delta down here to kind of get an idea of if there is any divergences occurring during these periods where we're going a little bit lighter on liquidity, because ultimately we're range bound. We see absorption on both sides of the tape, and we're failing to take out important swing levels on the upside, but on the downside as well. We're quite we're capped to a certain degree at around 44K thus far. We can't Sellers have not been able to pull the initiative lower and to tackle that 42K base of where we launched from initially on high volume. So for me, um, you know, obviously this can break either way. There's no right or wrong here. It's whatever. It, again, comes down to liquidity. Are buyers going to allow, or excuse me, are buyers going to push that initiative and continue to take it higher, and sellers going to allow them to do it, and vice versa. So it all comes down to liquidity. It all comes down to who has control of the initiative and continues to push aggressively, because it's all about relative value. Where do we see liquidity start to really extend the range? And so far on both ends, you have the low volume portions of this profile capping long and short. So we are completely range bound for the time being. We went over this a little bit in our Discord for premium members, for our advanced tier and our legacy tier in the private channels. We spoke about how the range is quite wide, and that there's a possibility that we get this two-sided trading. And now that we've seen it kind of go to both extremes and kind of taper off, we're getting consolidation and absorption on both sides of the book. And I think this is a great way for you guys to start your journey on looking for this, because we get asked a lot about it. We know that it's not that it's a really complicated topic, but it's something that a lot of people don't seem to fully grasp. So just remember, whenever you're seeing stuff like this, where you're seeing kind of like a consolidation on either end of the book, it's always good to draw lines in the sand, right? We call them LIS, or just like, kind of things like that, lines in the sand, where if one side or the other breaks, you kind of have an idea of the direction price is headed, over the next few, hours or whatever. So here we see it pretty clear. Here we see it pretty clear. We know that we tried breaking out on on a reversal here, relatively lower volume. Got above the previous high, but we couldn't get above where we failed. So that's something to watch. And we notice that there are a bunch of sellers stepping in the low volume areas. Again, buyers have been stepping in these low volume areas as well down here, but it all comes down to who is going to take control of the initiative and ultimately start the next phase of whatever this move is going to be. If we do get below 44 aggressively, we should start to target 42. If we do get above about 47 and a half, we start to rotate more towards that 48, 49 region, hopefully. But again, it all comes down to liquidity and the momentum and the relative volume. So absorption is just a way to kind of identify where price may be headed based on what the market's telling you now. And we like to talk about this a lot, what the market's telling you now, right? The market's telling me now that in the last 16 hours, we can't get above 46.5 and we can't get below 45.7. So when one side of this range breaks, it would be great to see, this start to move back higher on, or even if we start to move lower and we start to see buyers step in at these lows right here and delta flips, you get that divergence, would be a great sign. Next cluster, hopefully start to take out this resistance here and target, these lower volume areas. That would be kind of where I'm leaning hypo one wise, just because I don't think we're going to break down to 42K personally. I could be completely wrong. It's just a hypo I have. And just based on the previous trading, it looks like we want to extend higher. If we can't, though, and you see we're kind of getting very flat on this, what do you call it, VWAP, I would think that sellers run out of liquidity at a certain point, can't find the momentum to pull us down below. We get this absorption play out a little bit more, ultimately try to rotate higher. And if we can't, again, we're just going to watch how we react up here. Do we absorb buyers coming back up here and trying to retest and lift us higher? If so, we know we're range bound for a little bit longer, and we should be wary of entering into longs at this level here, trying to play a break, right? So that's basically it. There's not a ton more to this. It's you can look for divergences here is kind of what I'm looking for here, just waiting to see if anything appears. If we get that delta divergence as we attack the lows and vice versa at the highs on the next bar. But make sure you like and subscribe to these videos if you find them useful. Share them. Turn on notifications also, because we kind of do things a little bit sporadically. You might get a couple of days where multiple videos come out and you don't want to miss that. So make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for us. And if you have any questions, feel free, join the Discord, because we're in there actively every day, all day. With our premium group, we answer questions in the free channels as they come up, as we can, obviously. And again, it helps us a lot just by the liking and subscribing. It does more than you'll ever know, to be honest. And if you have anything you'd want to leave in the comments, feel free. I hope this video helped, and we will see you next time. Have a great day, guys.